Hey everybody, it's Richard Harris and Scott Leese with another episode in season two of the Surf and Sales podcast, brought to you in part by Vidyard, Lead 411, Salesforce, Sales Cloud, and Gong.io. Scott, is there a blurb we're supposed to say on Gong? I can't remember.
Gong is a game changer, Richard. It's a
That's what
game
it is.
changer, and every sales leader should have it.
Exactly. There you go. See, that's much more natural rather than some marketing spiel someone ever gives us. Not that
Yeah,
Gong's
because
done that.
it's very believable that neither of us can remember what we're supposed to do or say.
Yes. So, which makes us authentic. So, I want to super excited. I just met this woman in the last week and had an amazing conversation with her. And I'm like, okay, we need to bring her on the podcast. It is Mercy Lee Bell, who is the co-founder of Take Care, a virtual wellness event focused on authentic storytelling, which she'll gladly explain. And then we'll dive into some stuff. So, Mercy, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I recognize you both just from so many different places I've lived as a salesperson and also as a ex-salesperson. I just appreciate you both so much individually. So I'm really, really grateful to be here.
Well, that's my first question is, what does it mean to be an ex-salesperson?
I know.
Right.
As soon as I said it, I was like, he's going to come for me. It's, never stop, but I think it's not the primary identity anymore. So if I say the word X, it's like outside, I wear it loosely like a garment, and I take it off sometimes because there's moments when I have to create and be almost like an artist. And I guess I try to forget that I have to ever try to get it to be sold,
Right.
Yeah.
I like how you phrase that. It's not the primary driver, I think is the phrasing. I think that's a definition that I could get comfortable with. I wonder if more of us start to identify that way as sales as a profession is starting to change a little bit. I think the whole like 1980s Wall Street boiler room kind of vibe, I think is definitely not popular anymore, although it's still out there in some places. So I'm gonna remember that's my big takeaway already in the first minute. So thank you for that.
Let it be noted, listeners, watchers, that Scott had a takeaway within the first 5 minutes. That is,
yes.
I feel good.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we're done here.
Right.
We're done. I'm out.
Get into that garden. Yeah.
Exactly. So talk a little bit about your background. Like, where'd you even grow up, and how'd you eventually get into sales? Like, did your parents know you were going to be an entrepreneur?
Such a good question. I come from a long line of musicians and artists, and I don't think anyone thought I would end up being in sales or working in tech. My background is I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and when I got to college, I was broke, and I saw a flyer in the campus. I think it was one of the activity rooms that said the highest paying job was to be a student fundraiser. Talk about the boiler room, Scott. 2008, I'm a freshman in college, and I'm calling like Lehman Brothers ex-employees to ask them to renew their $25,000 gift. And that was my first experience of sales.
I'm sure you got tons of training too to do that.
So much, world class. What really ended up happening is that I discovered this, it's not a superpower, but I discovered that I really loved to connect with people on their most intimate memories. And that's what alumni fundraising is. You have to connect the person back to their deepest, most kind of poignant moments as a university student. And sometimes they're like 80 years old and they don't even remember much about the campus. You have to draw it out of them in these conversations over the phone. And I was very good at it, but I was good at it because I genuinely loved the aha moment for them when they were like, oh yeah, I did love going here. Oh yeah, I will give again. I'm going to give in this way that's really more invested, and like feeling that energy, that energetic exchange, not to get too hippie on you, but like the energy was really good. And it felt really, really, I felt powerful in that role as a fundraiser. And I did it all 4 years. I did it 20 hours a week. I did more hours in the call center than I did as a student in the classroom.
Wow.
And I bet you got a better education for it.
Don't get me started.
Right.
I think like a job should be required in college. And I think it's where 90% of the success I had in a career came from, was just from sitting, hitting the phones and getting good coaching over those
I
years.
always say, don't let college interfere with your education. So
No.
why I went to Arizona. So, so it was a good time. So when did you evolve your career from sales to, well, let me ask you this question. Did you used to identify yourself as a salesperson per your original definition, right?
Oh, yes.
So what was that like?
Catch me in 2020, blonde curly hair, walking through a tech startup office barefoot. I was the second employee. We raised 55 million. I did about 30% of the company's first 10 million, acting like the consummate, like first sales rep. Like I got all the good accounts. I closed all the big deals, and I did whatever the hell I wanted. I wore no shoes because that's what the guy in Mad Men did. I had this big blonde hair because I wanted to be unforgettable to you as a sales rep, which was easy to do as a 23-year-old enterprise sales rep being a Black woman. I mean, I was unforgettable for that reason, but I wanted to one up it. And I wanted to one up it because deep down, I felt like, the most, because deep down, I really didn't like myself. So I clung to the idea of being a high performer, to being a sales rep, and to being different and better than. Even though if you really asked me on any given day how I felt, I always felt like I was on the verge of losing my job. And I always felt like I just couldn't quite hit it. Like whatever that it was, the bar of like, I could never quite hit it. And so I would never sleep, and I would drink the coffee, and I would booze, and I would, try to learn golf terms and do all the things to be a great, great, great high performer. But secretly really felt really kind of like, I mean, I don't even know. This is the human condition. I just never felt quite good enough.
You mentioned you couldn't quite hit it. Is that because you were raising the bar on yourself, or because others were raising the bar on you?
I don't think it's such a that's a good question.
I asked the question, I'll give you a minute here for you to think. I asked the question because I have this problem. I don't do well when people raise the bar on me, because I'm already raising the bar so high on myself all the time. I'm like, I don't, get off me. I don't need you to tell me I got to do more. I'm already fucking trying to do more. I'm already 2 steps ahead of you. And the second piece of that I resonated with as well is I really struggle with disconnecting my productivity from my self-worth big time. And as you were talking and saying, I was doing all this, I was a high achiever, I wanted to stand out this, I wanted to be known, but you weren't happy. I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, because I'm only as good as how good I'm doing, because that's how I think. And I struggle 100%. With that even now. So that's 100%. Where the question came from.
I mean, I would just nod to everything you said, Richard. For you, particularly early, think about also like really early in our careers, like or those early 20s or into the 30s. What was sort of your feeling about everything?
Oh, I would say the same thing. Like I was only connected to my work self. I think Scott knows this. I went by Ricky at the time, but there was. Yeah.
You were Ricky?
Oh yeah, for a long time.
Are you still Ricky with anyone?
Oh, only when he pisses me off, then I say Ricky.
But it doesn't. Yes, so I am still Ricky with all my friends from high school and college. But there was only work Ricky. There was no personal me. I didn't know how to be that person. I had no social skills. My entire social life evolved around my work life, so I never sort of created enough outside interest in myself. And I, all along, I mean, I've talked about this openly. I've shared with you, Mercy, is that, all along I was depressed every step of the way. But I was functional, because I was a functional depressed person. And so, I can identify with, I didn't like who I was. So I was clinging to my career because I didn't like who I was, which I think is sort of what you said. But you said this was all in 2020. Is that when you said this was your?
Sorry, 2012. I'm 30. Okay. I'm 30 now. Yeah. My career in sales started as soon as I graduated from that fundraising job. as an undergrad, I went straight into a startup, and it was right in Palo Alto,
Right.
right in like a real estate office. We were just like this, just classic, a few engineers and a really junior person who didn't know any business jargon.
Right. So when did you have this epiphany of, you know what, I don't like myself. I don't like who I've let myself become. What was that moment for you?
Mm. I often share this one story. First off, understanding I don't really like myself would take much, much longer. It was just this feeling like not everything's right in the world. And I didn't realize what wasn't right was I didn't feel right. So it wasn't that I walked around with low self-esteem. If anything, I acted like I had real confidence, and I would preach self-love, and I did yoga teacher training, and I led the healthy habits challenges at our office. Nobody would have known I didn't like myself. I bought really nice skin creams. I went on vacations. I had a pop in Instagram. And so no one could tell, and I couldn't tell. That's how good of a liar I was. I always say like real dishonesty is also starts with self. I didn't know I didn't like myself.
Oh, I agree.
Right.
So
Damn, like, and finding out I was depressed as well. Richard, years later, I'm like, but I always got things done.
yeah.
That's not a prerequisite.
What was the moment? Like, was it?
All right. Yeah. Well, coming out of TechCrunch 2000 and want to say 15, I had been on the booth like for 3 days straight. Johnny Walker was sponsoring something in the center. So I'd been drinking for 3 days straight. And I had these really high heels on, which again, like never wear heels again. But at the time, I remember being so tired, I could barely see straight. And I could feel on the backs of my heels in these, coming out of the convention center, could feel that I had blisters that had opened. And I'm telling you this like raw, because I want you to really feel this. I was so tired, I could barely stand, and my feet were bleeding. And when someone came over to me and said, "Hey, Mercy, you want to come on the party trolley? You want to come on the party bus? We're going to do the rounds through San Francisco one more time. We're going to stop at Pinterest. Come on, you should come." It was as if someone had tied an invisible cord around my waist and pulled me onto that party trolley. Like I had no choice. My desire to be validated, to be seen, to be good enough, my desire to just like be a part of anything at all was so great that I actually couldn't even make a decision for myself, which was that I needed to sleep and I needed to take off my shoes. And, that was one of the first moments I realized that I had a drinking problem, which no one had told me about. Because again, like the depression, just because I'm productive doesn't mean I'm not depressed. Just because I can hold my liquor and don't make a fool of myself, I don't even know if that's true, doesn't mean I might not have a drinking problem. And I'm laughing about it. It's not that funny. I could have died many times, I think, from the way I drink. But all of that to say, I got on the party trolley, and when I woke up the next day, I conceded to my innermost self that something was wrong with me. Not with me, like fundamentally, but something was off with how I was living. Because in no world after that convention should I have not gone to bed. And I always share that story. So, it's a big one for me. It was a big light bulb.
Yeah. How did you take the first step towards a different path? Like, do you remember?
Oh yeah. Don't you? I don't know how I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I always feel like it's a million little moments that lead up to the change. It's like the whole course correct, like even just 0.5% sends me off in a totally different direction. I quit sales suddenly, somewhat that following year, and went back home, back east. But
to do what? I
don't want to tell you.
That's fine. You don't
No, it's funny.
But you pivoted. I'm trying to get at like the pivot from sales
so corny.
to
I joined the family business. I joined a family business for about a year.
Why is that corny? That doesn't sound corny. That sounds like a strategically wise decision.
And healthy.
To make a healthy decision to pivot from what was no longer serving you into a transitionary period that served some purpose.
Yep.
Which eventually has led you to kind of where you are now.
I like you saying that. And I so appreciate it. It was a little bit one of those things where I became a yoga teacher. I put on a new hat, trying to be sort of like, positive mindset, all good. And my brother's a celebrity massage therapist. So I was over there with him building out this wellness business. And I still hadn't addressed so many of the issues. So it's not so much the family business part. It's this idea of like, joining in on something, but not really living it. And that's what I did for about a year. And then slowly but surely went back into sales as a consultant and a data scientist. And now here doing whatever I'm doing.
Well, why don't you talk to us about what you're doing right now? I've never heard of it before.
Sure.
And we've never met before. So give me the lowdown. Talk to me about Take Care and what it is you do and
Cool.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, the whole point of Take Care was to build a virtual space during the pandemic where people could get honest about what they've been through. I think we start to take it for granted when we do it for ourselves and with the people we're closest to. But I know a lot of people in the pandemic forget that they're not alone in anything related to mental health, anything related to the wellness journey, chronic illness, grief and loss, the joys and the tribulations of parenting, all of it. The shame and the fear around all these subjects come when we just don't realize we're not alone. So we recorded 110 stories. In the last 12 weeks, we built
Are these,
site.
sorry to interrupt, is this
Yeah.
your stories from others? So what does the 112 stories look like?
Yeah, we gathered stories from about 80 leaders across industries, experts, authors, and everyday people. They all committed a story without any prompt other than tell us something specific from your wellness journey. And that's how we built the story bank, so to speak. And Take Care is a 30-day experience of all those stories. We built a virtual environment, a house. You explore room by room, and these stories, all recorded, all audio, sort of are available to you. And haven't slept in a few weeks. My co-founder is an amazing event designer from South by Southwest, and we got connected through a LinkedIn post. What are the chances?
The chances are increasingly high that, no offense, that people are partnered up, and doing things through a platform like LinkedIn. So that doesn't surprise me too much.
So this is where I spoke to her last week, Scott, and I was like, okay, we need to get her on the podcast. Because I'd seen this virtual world she'd created, and I was like, okay, Scott's gonna like her and what she's doing. And then Mercy, you need to interview Scott. I don't know if you know.
I would love to.
He spent several years literally in the hospital fighting for his life and stuff. So anyway, so I think he'd be a good addition to your repertoire.
She's got enough stories.
No, Scott, there's not enough
story, yeah. Richard.
No, we don't have enough stories from people with beards, and that's like one of my okay.
Wow.
First of all, I like anybody who comes in just making fun of me straight away.
Right.
There have been so many moments.
We've bonded. At first, she gave me like wisdom in the first 30 seconds, and now she's making fun of me. Like, we're good. Okay, now I'll do it. Now I'll do a story.
Good, yeah. Good.
So coming back to sales, right? And your what you've experienced. What are 2 or 3 things that you would encourage people? And I'm actually going to go even more specific. I'd love to know what advice you would give to other Black women in sales.
Thank you.
And Black people, or people of color.
Yep.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be male or female, but it's even, as I understand it, it's even more rare, for Black women. So what advice do you give to them?
Yeah.
And what advice do you give to us, who are
Amazing.
the white males and white women who are, tend to dominate a little bit more, certainly the white males?
Yes, appreciate that. First off, I want to plug Sales for the Culture, which I have the honor of sitting on the board for. And but more importantly, there's a podcast called Made It. I have a few interviews on there. There's a visibility conversation that's starting that's actually making me realize there are more Black tech sellers, incredible ones, and I just didn't know we existed because we're kind of dispersed. So the advice I would give for any Black woman in sales is to recognize difference as a competitive advantage. Which, when we were talking about self-love, difference feels like a bad word. I feel different. Something's wrong. Something feels different. That all feels negative. But inside of sales, to be different visually, I have found it to be an incredible point, like almost, an advantage. I embrace my age, looking young. I look less young than I used to, but I still look pretty young, which I used to think would be a handicap or a disability for handicap for this, but it's not. And so I would say really embrace all the unique aspects of who you are. It doesn't mean you have to call them out because that can speak to discomfort, but
What's
kind
the
of
difference there? Because I was wondering, like what does that mean? Because I don't know what that is.
Sure. I'll give two examples. One being that when I go to a conference and I realize, I'm probably going to be the only Black woman on the floor, possibly. I mean, back in 2013, 14, maybe, certainly. I used to try to wear what everyone else was wearing. Used to try to do the uniform. In fact, I even got a vest, and I one time even wore a collared plaid shirt. Like I really did the whole thing.
This is
And
troublesome.
yeah. Oh, I would straighten my hair. I would do whatever I could to try to approach the visual cues of like many of my peers. And then when I actually let my hair grow, stay curly, even dyed it blonde just for fun, and I started to wear bright colors, which are actually my personality, that's when things really started to shift for me in my career, because I didn't seek to try to be visually any different than I am. And that was more of actually a presence thing. I'd write emails more boldly as a result. I'd walk into meetings, even if someone said, "Are we waiting on anyone else?" If I get that one more time, "Are we waiting on anyone else?" No, just me. And I'm going to sell Expedia and do the largest mobile marketing deal for Yahoo. I'm going to do it all as a Black woman, proudly in her 20s, and do it without any sort of chip on my shoulder, because I'm so grateful to look this way and to be this way and to be who I am. I don't need to prove anything to you. I just am going to be me. And the energy of that, when there's no trying to it's amazing. It's magnetic.
How do you do that without without the chip on your shoulder?
Tell me.
I have had a chip on my shoulder forever.
With that beard,
and still do. And still do. And in my head, I've told myself the narrative that it's given me a competitive, advantage. I don't know that. I think it is maybe a competitive advantage, but I also know that it's probably somewhere inside of me, like not super healthy.
Yeah.
So how did you go about that shift from not having the chip on your shoulder and more just being incredibly proud of who you are?
Oof. So much comes from recovery. I'm 5 years sober, and I think I've become less interested in my past. I used to go to therapy all the time, so interested in how traumatic my childhood was, so interested in how poor, how whatever, like I had all this, wrapped up in that identity too. And as a result, everything I did was about proving to you, like, you know what, look at what I can do. And now I just don't do that. I just don't have that attachment to the past like I used to. In my recovery, I have to be grateful. To be grateful, I can't go back there. I will drink and I will use drugs if I am not in a state of gratitude. And I'm one of those. I'm not one of those who's like, I just drank a little too much. Like, given the opportunity to get into resentment and self-pity, I'm off. Like there's no hope. So I live in gratitude, which requires a present moment awareness and some future curiosity. And from that, I can't identify with my past. And if I can't identify with my past as much, I can't be trying to, prove myself out of it. So I don't identify by at least as much. I still do sometimes, but I'm not on here trying to make sure y'all know I'm articulate and smart, which is what I would have really wanted to do, is make sure you both knew, that I was good enough. And, it's a long journey. But I will tell you one thing, last thing, Scott, because if you think you're powerful now, running on the fuel of a chip on your shoulder, just try for a week running off of pure gratitude for everything you have, including that garden. And I think I don't know, my experience has been,
Yeah.
I have twice as much energy. And then these random things, people are attracted to me in a totally different way. And I mean, attracted to me because the energy of like, fuck you undercurrent on everything I do, people can feel that too.
Yeah, Scott, we can feel that.
I don't get it from you personally, but I'm sure.
That's because if you don't get it from me personally, there's two reasons. Number one, as Richard alluded to, I don't think you spend 4 years fighting for your life and come out the other side of that unchanged. And I've been incredibly grateful to be sitting here and breathing this air, let alone get an opportunity to be a salesperson, let alone get an opportunity to be a VP of sales and all the whatever else, everything else that I've done. So I have that gratitude and appreciation for sure. And then, in terms of the recovery kind of journey, I mean, through my illness, I got addicted to opioids. And so, having to kick off of that and knowing myself when certain moments of pain come up, real or imagined, physical or mental, my default is always like, well, I can numb that shit quick. I can numb it quick. I don't have to feel that. And my brain still goes there. That's 17 years later. Now my brain still goes there. But the undercurrent is there. It's not with humanity. It's not with people that I interact with. It's with very specific people from my past. So this is not I have not perfected this at all, which is why I asked the question. And I'm not trying to assume that you have perfected it, but the way that you articulated it, just spoke to me and made me think, well, shit, there's something to be learned here, from that I haven't quite figured out yet. That's all. That's maybe why you don't get that sense, but it's in there. And if I get poked by the wrong people often enough, Richard knows,
Richard's face is like, yeah, we know this.
The Sicilian in me comes out quick,
Yeah, sometimes it does though. I think you've gotten better, Scott, at, you know what, I'm just going to walk away from that conversation. Right.
Well, a little bit of that is age and maturity, and
right.
a lot of it is probably just, I just don't care anymore. I don't care to have an argument. I don't care about being right. I'm just not interested.
I also, it's interesting too, like, because now that I know both of you, you have this similar take. Scott was also a professional athlete, so that level of chip on the shoulder is a little, I don't know if it's any different. Maybe it is the same. I don't know. I never had it quite like Scott. And I've said, he hates losing more than he likes winning. Right. And so that drives him, with passion to do things. And I know a lot of people in sales, like I think, they hate losing more than they like winning. And so it's just interesting to me to see all those pieces. So, what do you do for fun? Like, what's you're working crazy hours, right? You're no longer drinking and caffeinating. Maybe you're still caffeinating. I don't know, but there it is. What do you?
She's proud about it too.
I'm a chronic hydrator. I have so many glasses. I think this is part of the ism for me, is like one is never enough. I mean, literally just with water and like electrolytes.
Got empty cups everywhere.
To your point, like, you weren't living a life, which is kind of how I was at one point. What did you decide to take up? Are you still doing your yoga stuff? Or are you still doing, what's your hobby that you love?
I'm a reader. I try to read a book a week, and not like nothing smart. I don't read nonfiction, pure science fiction, pure like, magic and dragons and things that would like make you both think differently of me, because my brain can't live all the time in the real world, and I can't escape the way I used to, because it will kill me.
Right.
So I try to use books and movies to get outside of myself and to imagine a different way. And I get inspiration all the time from books and movies and music. And so, yeah, that's really my hobby.
What's super interesting to me about that is a while back, somebody asked me like, what's your favorite books to read? And I say anything except business books. It's too hard for me to sit there in this like seriousness and intellectualness of hundreds of pages of all this stuff. And I could read, I don't know what, books you're thinking of, but like I read the entire Ender's Game series. There's like nine books.
My
I read them
favorite.
all. I read them all in the hospital when I was sick. Right. And I could go back and look through those books and apply all sorts of things to sales, to leadership, to entrepreneurship, for sure. So I get inspiration from those things. So somebody said to me, what's the best sales book you ever read? I said, not a sales book. And I think it's underrated. And I think a listener might hear the first part of your answer, which was, I try to read a book a week, and immediately be like, oh, fuck off. I cannot read a book a week. The problem is not that you can't read a book a week. The problem is you're trying to read shit that is not super interesting and not super inspirational for you because other people told you that's probably what you're supposed to read. No.
And even wilder, something I used to do in sales conversations, so with like a disco call, maybe a little bit later into the process, I'd start to ask the prospect what they were into, like what their hobbies were and what they were into. And without making it so obvious, so like, being the next day, like, hey, I've read this book now, I would try to mirror their interests and their hobbies through my reading. And I would find one, empathy for the prospect. I would find something I didn't know. I'd get interested, curious about them and what they liked. And I still do that to this day. I ask people, what are you reading? I try, if I'm becoming friends, I try to read that book or read something in the genre, because I think what we consume is who we are. I really believe that. I watch a lot of crime docs, so you better be worried about me showing up with a machete or something. But have you all seen Son of Sam? Wait, we need to talk about it if you have. Have you seen this new Netflix documentary?
I have not seen it.
I have not seen that one, no, but I've seen it and I'm kind of wondering if I should see it or not. So
I feel
her expression it looks like you should watch this. You should.
I think you should watch it. It's really, I love the dark side of human psychology and how we work and what we do. And it's real dark.
Yeah, that's exactly where I need to go. So.
Well, what was interesting there, Richard, is you listen to Mercy talk. It's like she's working her. That's like prospecting master's degree. Like you listen to what other people are listening to. You read what the prospects and buyers are reading. You need to learn more about them and how they think and how to connect with them. Like that's particularly important in enterprise kinds of sales, don't you think, Richard?
Yeah, I do. And it's, again, it's back to that personalization and versus personalization of sales. So I completely see that. So.
It reminds me of something else, which, I don't come from a business background. I'm the first person to graduate high school in like, sort of the chronological way in my family. And, I didn't know things like I didn't know BANT. I didn't even understand business terminology when I got my first job. I just had no idea what was going on, but I knew I loved people, even if some of it was that self-worth thing. And I used to ask prospects what they wanted to do with their careers. I'd be like, where do you want to go? Do you want to stay at this company? I ask all types of inappropriate in the sense that they were tangential to the product at hand. But I would start to build this idea of how I could be of service to them. And even though I was selling a lot for my self-esteem, there was a part of me that deeply loved people and really wanted that magic moment of connection. And I would tie back this enterprise tech, which was like marketing analytics. I would tie it back to their career journey, or I'd tie it back to that book or that part of their psyche that I had kind of identified. Oh, really risk averse, reads a lot of apocalyptic fiction. Oh, doesn't like this company that much, but maybe this could help them, X, Y, and Z. And I would just say the thing on the call because I didn't know about business etiquette. And like, I didn't understand that people hide and, lie all the time in sales conversations. So I'd be like, hey, doesn't seem like you're loving it here, but maybe you're thinking about, this position. Have you thought about this position at the company? I'd send them job recs, like crazy shit that I look back on. And I'm like, probably wasn't a sales technique, but it worked because it was honest. And I wanted to be with them, understand them, and help them genuinely as people, not personas.
And that ironically is the best sales technique.
It is completely. I actually want to circle back to a subject, because you answered it, but we didn't talk about the second question, which is, what can sales leaders do better, unless particularly white male sales leaders, to embrace, men and women of color, Black, African American? What are we missing out on that we are just oblivious to?
It's a huge part of why we built Take Care. So empathy is actually harder. It's harder to understand what someone else is going through when they're going through something really different. So no white leader can know what it feels like to be, let's say, a Black man in America. I'm not a Black man in America, also can't understand that. But these unique experiences, if white leaders in particular can stop to listen, Take Care is a place where you can do this, but like many places, just beginning to build this sense of not empathy per se, because you can't understand it fully. Like I can't understand everything fully. You start to build this awareness of how much you don't know. And that lends itself to a different type of conversation as a leader with your employees. On Black History Month, you won't just be like, oh, good, I did the thing. I like sent out the email. I like did the thing, like, woof, not a racist. It's like, I wonder how it feels to have your history in only a single month of the year. I wonder if there's a way we could do this differently as a company. I wonder if there's a way to just like, so just the curiosity and because you kind of have this pause of like, I wonder what it's really like. And not saying, oh, I know what it's really like, but being interested and curious, and hearing people's stories builds that curiosity. So like there's so much literature and books, but like talking to actual people of color on your floor, like no bullshit, what's really going on for you? And it's really hard to make a safe enough space for them to answer you honestly. So then go 1 degree out, and get resources. Like it's so hard to understand the complexity of being Black in the workplace. And there's not one way it looks. But I will just tell you, when I walked into some of my sales environments, the number of times when I closed a deal, they would play a hip hop song for me, but they would play the rock song for my counterpart. The number of times I was at Google once and I was leaving the office and they said, Mercy, where are you going? And I said, I'm going home. And they said, to do hood rat things with your friends. And I remember thinking to myself, there just must be no pause and no curiosity about what it feels like. So my advice is to get quiet and listen to stories and not take them personally, but get interested in what the experience is like for other people. We can all be doing that, myself included.
I love that.
Yeah.
Crazy. I love that line. Get quiet, listen to stories, and what was the last part of it? Get quiet, listen to stories.
I don't know. I black out when I talk, basically. I don't know.
I know it happens to me all the time.
That's what happens when you just drop wisdom like that.
Drop great knowledge. So
yeah, it takes it out of you. Takes it out of you for a minute. I can't imagine. My God, I can't imagine sales leaders of any kind, any shape and size, just saying something like that, which is not even remotely trying to mask or hide your biases, whatever the word is.
So many are unconscious. So many. Yeah. It was so funny because I grew up, my mom is a country Western singer. She was in a punk rock band. My mom is white. My biological mother is blonde, blue-eyed. All that family's from Germany. I identify as a Black woman. I am a Black woman. But it was so interesting to walk into a workplace and for the CEO to ask me to tell, him about the history of hip hop. And I'm over here like, my favorite song is Simple Man, Lynyrd Skynyrd. So you want me to tell you about hip hop? At that time, there was no language to say, hey, you don't see me. There was no language for that. So all I had to do was just kind of be like, do a quick Google search and be like, yeah, we should be listening to Tribe Called Quest. And it's only as funny as I make it today, but how many people, we just. These
It's
micro
and
aggressions.
it's
Yeah.
those little things that, you know, I have never had to deal with in the workplace that would make my job 1% harder. And this is just one moment that Mercy's talking about.
Yeah.
And there's probably thousands of those micro moments that people of color, that women, you know, deal with every single day. And
Oof, yes.
it's not that that one moment is overwhelming and makes your job impossible to do. It's just the weight of all of those little moments. And what an advantage for me to not have to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
You know, whether consistent or every now and then. I don't know if you feel the same way as me, Richard. I suspect that you do. But it makes our job so much easier.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a couple of clients, and I remember, I think I've shared this before, when things happened back in Ferguson several years ago, and there was one Black woman on the floor, and I was doing sort of like one-on-ones as part of my consulting, and I just, before getting into sales, I just think, do you really want to talk about sales, or how are you doing? Like, what's going on? And she shared, you know, that she appreciated me asking. I said, has anybody even like said anything here? And she's like, well, they had a meeting, you know, they got us together to, you know, express, you know, concerns and those kinds of things. And I said, yeah, I said, I'm really sorry. I said, I don't know what this is like for you, other than it seems to be very uncomfortable. And you know, so we just talked about it. So, and it was probably one of the most, without being selfish, the most rewarding conversations, because you create a real connection with that person, right? And you know, to this point, I remember her vividly, image wise and name, and you know, just, you know, you create that deeper connection, which is what I think all leaders want. And I know salespeople want. I know not even salespeople, but everybody wants that connection with the leader. And I think
we've all experienced it, how we work when the thing on the line is family. So I know work isn't about creating a family. In a perfect world, it's work. It's not a family. But when a leader takes time to invest and listen and care, I will work twice as hard, and not from that you know, burn myself out way. It's like I work with a different level of it's like the fuel is clean. When I'm afraid of you, when I'm trying to be good enough for you, I'm running on like this dirty fuel.
Yeah.
You know? And yet when I know that like I'm on a team where I'm supported and seen, and I actually can bring more of myself, the way I work is different. I mean, new ideas, right? We get inspired, like, but if I'm only thinking about hitting my activity levels or just trying to not fall below X, and I'm in fear mode, I never get creative.
Yeah.
And I can't work as hard because I'm exhausted. Half my brain's thinking about, am I going to get fired, or do they really see me, or why did he say that thing? Or
it makes total sense. And we gotta move to wrap it up. Want to give a quick shout out to Salesforce Sales Cloud, Lead 411, Vidyard, and Gong.io, the game changer, if I got it right.
Well done, Richard.
In sales as a technology. Mercy, we always turn this around, and you know, what question can we answer for you?
Oh, I have so many, but I want to choose one that's top of mind. What's the part of yourself that you're both quite visible on the internets? What's the part of yourself that is least visible? Least visible.
That's easy for me.
That's what?
Chin?
That's easy for me.
What's that, Scott?
My physical pain. Nobody knows, you know. You don't. This is not mental and it's not emotional. It's physical pain. Yeah, I've been through 9 surgeries, 4 major abdominal surgeries, 2 life-saving abdominal surgeries. I have no large intestine. I've been on medicine that makes joints and tendons and everything hurt and ache. I have osteopenia, osteoporosis, early arthritis. So my body is beat up all day, every day. And it's just people you can't see, you can't tell, you don't know, you know. I'll do shows like this, or I'll be visible, and you know, people will say, you know, how's it going? How you doing? I'm like, I'm fine. And then Richard has been around me long enough now where he'll message me and be like, hey, how you feeling? I'm like, dude, I'm fucking dying, dude. Like I literally pulled myself out of bed like 5 minutes ago because I'm in so much pain. So that is that part, you know, and people don't know that from a neck up Zoom, and the way that I, you know, at least try to show up for different events and whatnot. That part is the part people don't know and don't see. How much work it took me this morning to get to a place where I could have this conversation. That's the part.
Yeah, I might have to ask Scott to answer this for me, because it's hard for me, because I do talk about everything. I don't think I hide anything, whether it's family stuff or my emotional stuff or personal stuff. I think that probably the thing I hide the most is how much joy I feel inside. Not that I don't have excitement and those kinds of things, but because I talk so much about mental health, people are always asking me about it, and I'm not done with my journey, but I think I'm through the hardest parts of it, and so I have to sort of be mindful when I'm talking to people who ask me, well, how are you doing? How I answer that. Like I'm a little more surface about, oh, work is good, the family's good, life is good, I can't complain, I'm very blessed, you know, nobody got sick, sort of those things. Because I'm afraid that that I'll just sound like an asshole, like, you know, wow, the world is great, everything's fantastic. And I'm also very conscious too of like what's happening socially and politically in the world right now. I'm afraid I'd feel tone deaf if I didn't try to curb my enthusiasm a little. So I don't know, Scott, does that seem accurate of me?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I was gonna, if you made me answer for you, I would say you hide how good you are at sales, to be honest with you.
I don't even think I know I'm hiding it, because I don't think I am. I think that's barely true.
I think that's the unspoken piece, is how fucking good you are at what you do. You don't ever talk about your wins, or, you know, brag or boast, not even really to me. And like, this is a safe place. Like, you should be, every time you close a deal, you should be, you know, shoot me a message that says, I just did this, I just did that.
Yeah.
Because you know, I think everybody deserves to have one of those kind of safe places. But I think the world doesn't know how good you are at selling and training, coaching and developing. And I think that's the part that you hide a little bit. And because you're so open and talking about all these other challenges, I don't think they necessarily know how good you are at all this.
I'm not comfortable talking about myself that way. That's for sure. That's for sure. I also don't tell you, Scott, because then you're going to one up me.
Well,
he's like, you're not wrong.
It's probably truth. That's probably factual. Yeah.
But here's this is why I'm always so conscious of, I don't play on LinkedIn. Okay. I don't play on the internet much. I don't go out there. I don't have a brand. One of my greatest fears is getting caught in my own narrative. So, you know, Scott, you've got the hero's journey, right? For so many, it's like, was there, now here. You can see my up here. And how do you also then go back and explain, well, I wake up every fucking day down here, every day, and I have to pull myself back up to your here, physically, mentally. And I know the emotional and spiritual, might I say, a journey with chronic pain and illness. Oh, okay. Well, Richard, like, you got a whole story down here, but also the facts on the ground is you're killing it and life is amazing. So I just feel like I'm just putting out here one thing. I am afraid to have any sort of, to be known of for anything, because then I'm afraid it's like a little bit like a trap.
Yeah, this is a whole other conversation we could go into.
Yeah, we'll do that another day.
Part two of the podcast.
The trap, part 2. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, we do need to wrap it up, but Mercy, thank you so much for coming on short notice, and awesome conversation, and thanks for all the education and wisdom.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to meet you, Mercy.
So good to meet you both. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.